your eyes and attention to that. And now I will turn it over to my colleague and dear friend, Otto Sharmer, who's the co-founder of the Presencing Institute. He's also a senior lecturer at MIT. And he holds the founding chair at the Presencing Institute, and he has been really helping leaders across sectors experience systems transformation. So I turn it over to you, Otto, and thank you for sparking us on this work.
Thank you, Antoinette. Hello, everyone. Antoinette, you used the word social body, and I think we can't launch into this session without acknowledging the pain that we all feel in our planetary body, not only in terms of the violence we inflict on planet Earth, but also the violence we inflict on each other, the abhorrent atrocities that unfolded in Israel over the weekend. I see a number of us coming from Ukraine, kind of some of which I know as good friends. So we all are aware of these events and in so many other places. So I don't want to, I cannot do justice to that. I just want to acknowledge that it's part of the topic we want to begin to lean into, which is the topic of the collective social body. And you may have seen in the title of this session the word social field, and you may wonder what really is the social field. So before we launch into the first of 4 stories, I just want to offer 2 sets of distinctions that might be helpful to pay attention to these stories in a way that helps us to unearth kind of some of the deeper layers of that social body. So what is a social field? To start with a little maybe quasi definition, a social field is a social system with a soul. So in other words, it's a social system with some interiority, right? When we say social systems, it's usually something we look at from outside. And with social field, yes, we include that exterior dimension, but also kind of the more kind of interior or relational dimension. And I grew up on a regenerative farm, and what so my parents have been co-pioneers of regenerative farming over the past 60-some years. And what I noticed them doing is, where's all the attention, right? When you're a regenerative farmer, where's all your attention? It's all on the quality of the soil. In other words, it's all on kind of the less visible part of the field, because you cannot connect to the soil without bending down, without getting down onto your knees, without kind of really putting your hand into the soil, without getting engaged yourself. So that's, I think that's something that I saw as a kid. And when I look at the work I'm doing, I'm thousands of miles away here at MIT in Boston. But in reality, when I think about how far did I move away from this work, not an inch, right? Because what I see myself doing, what I see probably all of us doing is exactly the same thing. So except that many of us not primarily maybe focus on improving the quality of the agricultural field, but improving the quality of the social field. And what is the social field? It is the set of invisible conditions that allows the visible stuff to flourish. So in the social field is defined, I believe, in the quality of the relationships that we have with each other and that allow us to enact the results that we collectively create. And I found it interesting when you double click on the when you really follow and trace the Indo-European word root, the original Proto-Indo-European word root of the English word and the Latin and Portuguese and Spanish and so on and so forth, word of soil, right? The topsoil, the humus. It has the same source than the words humility and humanity. So topsoil, humus, and humility and humanity and humor all are derivatives of the same word root. And I think that is somewhat connected to our topic, which is how to rethink social systems if we more consciously include the interior dimensions of leadership and of systems change. So let me end with, so that's kind of the concept of the social field and attending to the deeper layers of the social soil is one distinction. And the other one that I want to draw your attention to and offer as a lens as you're listening to the stories is kind of the more traditional social systems view, right? So in many social systems, we do this, right? We collectively create results that nobody wants. We all know kind of the poly crisis, kind of some of the symptoms thereof, and in systems thinking and awareness-based systems thinking, which is kind of what our work is grounded in. We really use kind of the main approach is to understand and address these deeper root issues that make us kind of co-enacting these patterns that in reality, if you really get down to it, nobody really wants. And the approach of awareness-based systems change is grounded in the principles that you cannot change a system until you transform consciousness, kind of that really the shift of the mindsets of the people who are enacting the system are really at the foundation of all profound change. Secondly, you cannot do that. You cannot transform consciousness until you make a system see, sense, and invert or evolve itself. Inversion really means to recognize the deep connection between the inner and the outer, that the world and mind are not separate. And lastly, you can't lead systems transformation until you sense and presence, sense and actualize the future as it emerges. And as some of you may know, kind of, so what that really means in leadership and practical change-making work is that you pay attention to the interior dimension, that you pay attention to cultivating these conditions: open mind, open heart, open will, curiosity, compassion, courage. And that's basically what is the main gist of all the deeper, that's the territory of all the deeper change-making and leadership work. But what we see playing out in the world is pretty much the opposite, right? So also, right, we see all the things, the positive developments on the lower end, but at the same time, as we saw over the weekend, we see the freeze of the mind, heart, will. In other words, kind of the amplification of ignorance, hate, and fear. So instead of seeing and sensing, it's about denial and desensing. Instead of presencing, connecting to the highest future possibility, it is about absencing. And instead of bringing the new into the world, what we see is these patterns of destruction and eventually self-destruction. So what we are saying is that when we are hit by a disruption, which is going to happen more increasingly at increased frequency going forward, we have a choice. We can respond by turning away and freeze, or we can respond by turning toward and opening up, or by leaning in and holding. And if we turn away and freeze, kind of, we activate one kind of cycle that we all know very well. And if we lean towards and and open up, it is another cycle. And when you step back and say, okay, both of these are reals, both of these are different qualities of the social field, what really is the difference? We have, and when you look at the patterns, really architectures of separation and patterns of destruction on the one side, and architectures of connection and patterns of co-creation on the other. But what then is the independent variable, kind of the where does leadership happen, whether it's moving, whether in a tipping point, a system is moving into one or the other direction. And that's where I want to offer this distinction here, ecosystem awareness versus ecosystem awareness. And ecosystem awareness basically means an awareness that is originating inside its own bubble, inside its own boundaries, while ecosystem awareness is moving beyond that by opening the mind, opening the heart, opening the will. So how is all of that practical in our leadership and change work? And that's what I want to end with. And it has to do with the blind spot, that we all have and that we need each other to, in order to illuminate. Not seeing, right? The whole patterns of denial, bias, denial requires us to access our not knowing. That's why all the sensing and all the leaning into the not knowing is so critical. Not feeling from, from whatever we are dealing with leads to othering. And that requires us to access our empathy, to access the opening of our heart, or our not feeling, access our feelings as organs of perception, and not acting from it, kind of which manifests in patterns of depression or destruction, as we saw, as we are seeing in many places today, requires us to access our letting go and access our courage, letting go and letting come, which really is the bottom part of this you process here. So with those lenses as a backdrop, I want to turn it over to, which really draw our attention to the deeper layers of the social field, and that it is the quality of the soil, the quality of our relationship at the end of the day that determine whether we co-enact patterns of destruction or patterns of co-creation. So with that as a backdrop, I want to turn it over to you, Manish,